Claus had a wife, she would look just like my grandmother. She had snowy white hair, sparkling blue eyes, rosy cheeks, and a button nose. She was pleasantly plump, and she had an ample bosom that saw many teary eyes. I experienced death when I was young in my life, the first time when my grandfather passed away when I was 9, and my grandmother then came and lived with us. Just a couple years later, my brother was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and after several surgeries and 15 months in and out of the hospital, he too passed away. And our family was very tight and very close. My mother, my father, and my brother and myself, I was daddy's little girl, and my brother was mama's boy. So when he passed, it shredded our family, and my mother and my father grew very close together, which as they should have. But I lost my champion and my confidant, and my grandmother became that in my life. She lived with us, and she was there for me. She was my rock. She loved me. She loves her scotch on the rocks and her rosary. Every day of my life that I can remember, she always carved out time for her prayers and her rosary. Even though I was raised Jewish, my parents always respected her faith. And one of the best parts about that growing up was we always got to celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah. I joined the Army when I was 18 and moved away. And but she still lived at home with my parents. And when she was 94, she fell and broke her hip. Well, my parents could no longer take care of her at home, and she needed long-term care. And so they started the process of looking for a place that was appropriate for her. Most of them are what I call the 3 Ds: dreary, dismal, and depressing. So when an opening came up at the Motion Picture and Television Fund, we grabbed at it, and it was a godsend. Just a few miles from our home, my parents were able to come visit her, and anytime they want, pop in and check on her. The last year of her life was very special for us. She had a great time at the Motion Picture Home. A lot of people say, oh, you go to retirement home to go and die, which was crazy, because she came here and she lived. She found friends, she found activities, and most of all, she found the fountain and the birds. And that was her morning ritual with her rosary and her prayers, sitting at the fountain, listening to her birds. The last year as I mentioned, I moved away. I got married. I was a mother, a wife. And when I ended up getting divorced, I came home that last year in 96, 97. And it was such a comfort, even though she wasn't at home where I was living with my parents. I could come visit her. She got to know my son, and it was a great time. Then, towards the last few days of her life, she was slipping in and out of a coma. And I remember that last Wednesday in November when I came in and visited her. We had a lot of family and friends around, but I always took what I said was a graveyard shift, because she didn't like to be alone at night. That's the only downside of not being in your own home, is just nights a little crazy. So I like to stay with her at night, and I came in on that Wednesday, and it was the first time I had really noticed that her hair had thinned, her cheeks weren't rosy anymore, the sparkle was going out of her eyes, and she was lying there and looked so pale. But the thing about her is she was always full of life, because she was sharp-minded, 96 years old, you couldn't get anything by her. But her body was giving out on her, and her body just wasn't doing what her mind wanted it to do. That night, she was drifting in and out, and I came in sometime after 9 o'clock in the evening and just sat down with her. I pulled in one of the wooden chairs, leather-padded chairs from the hallway, and put it by the bed, and was holding her hand, and we both kind of drifted off. I was awakened when she woke up, and she said, "Who's there? Who's in my room?" And I looked, and there was just some of the ambient light coming in from the hallway and the dim light from above her bed. I said, "Grandma, there's nobody there." I said, "It's okay, you're safe. You can go back to sleep." And She looked, she said, there's a man in my room. There's a man standing in the light. And I looked again, and nothing was different. I said, Grandma, it's okay, you're safe. There's nobody there. She went back to sleep, and I fell back asleep with her. And a little while later, probably a little shortly after 2 a.m., the nurse came in and gently woke me up, said she's gone. And that's when it hit me. And I was so sorry I said there was no one there, because I knew. I believed in her, and she believed in Jesus, and she believed in God. And because of her, I believed. And I knew that Jesus had come and taken her home. And I was able to receive the gift that night that she gave me and God gave me, the gift of faith and the peace and the feeling of love that comes with that. My faith is much more today than the size of a mustard seed. I have the faith of several Mount Everests. Thank you.